engineer, graduate engineer, and a postgraduate from IIM Bangalore. Later, he has worked in all sectors: automobile, heavy electricals, power plants, edible oils, and he is a consultant on the insurance in a big way. He was paneled in many banks as an insurance consultant and valuer. Almost has more than 30 years of experience in the CEO level. He has been advisor to Ministry of Private Sector Development, Government of Ghana, and he has been advisor for the Regional Cooperation Committee, African Regional Cooperation, and he has represented Ghana government in United Nations Forum also. We have shared his profiles also in our circular. Now, here the call is that he is owning 3 industries at Nigeria, Ghana, and Ivory Coast as a co-entrepreneur from other states within the country. And I have been operating from more than four states. So at a time, I felt that operating in other state where the linguistic barriers are there and the political things, local political things are different. So a person who is operating in 3 countries, this for me is a big guru. One great namaste to you, because it needs a lot of guts to stay abroad and operate a company and employ foreign nationals. So I'm privileged that today you are here to share your experience with us. Over to you, Venkatesh.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Abhi, for the nice introduction. I will also introduce myself in a certain qualitative terms before we plunge on to the actual talk. I am basically like an amphibian. An amphibian in the sense that I like to live in 2 worlds. One is academic, another is business. We call business in the crass way. Like business is rough and tumble, but academic thing is pristine and untouched by the roughness of the business. So we take solace. People who are close to me know that I spend a lot of time, quite a considerable time in my day, solving a few mathematical problems, which really refreshes one's mind. Though it may not be very tough, at least going through the rigmarole of solving a problem gives you a perspective, a refreshment, having a rank, like an exercise, like a physical exercise gives you a refreshment of the body, which actually releases things like oxytocins and those sort of things people say. This mental exercise gives a good thing to keep abreast of things and keep your mind sharp. I would rather, it was in the back of my mind, so I thought I should start the session with something which is relevant to you guys. So it came to me like a flash. It could be absurd. I mean, I was thinking that, we know this space, what we live in as a Euclidean space, we see as an Euclidean space. So robots operate in the Euclidean space, going from one point in a coordinate system to another point in a coordinate system. I thought about it a couple of days back. What if the space is hyperbolic? Do you guys have an equation, or do you guys have something which a pick and place robo, a simple pick and place robo, can go from point P to point P to point Q in a Euclidean space in a Cartesian coordinate, prescribed by a Cartesian coordinate? Can you, have you ever thought the trajectory can be hyperbolic segment? Have you ever thought about it? So my first slide, let me show it, what I thought about it and I don't know the answer. In fact, it could be an absurd thought, but then I browsed yesterday and I found that a research article actually exists. A research article actually exists in a robotic arm, a basic pick and place robot tracking a hyperbolic trajectory. A research paper exists. I just saw that. Now, this is the topic today, the transnational business and leveraging the engineering knowledge in which segments. So let me say why I called it transnational, not international. It's not that international is meaning between nations. It connotes trade, it connotes flow of goods and services, possibly people. So, but transnational it pervades, goes across the nation, existing, going and setting up something in the nation, in another nation. So you leverage your engineering knowledge in niche areas. By niche areas, I mean where the development has not happened in that particular country, in that segment. So it is something new which I would like to broach here. Now the agenda. As I told you, this agenda. First I'll start with the teaser on the robotics in a non-Euclidean space. And then I'll go to the competitive advantage of nations and of course, by corollary, its companies. The companies contribute to the competitive advantage of a nation. So it comes from the company level, it comes from microeconomic level. And next comes Michael E. Porter, the guru of strategic thinking in marketing, who's always his diamond model. And we talk about core competencies. I will go to talk about a case study of Walam Group. Many of you would have heard about that. It's a great success story, African success story of an Indian group. And then we talk about trading blocks, regional. When I mean trading blocks, It's not encompassing the world. It's regional trading blocks and how to leverage them. It's people think it could be advantage. There are papers which talks about advantage versus disadvantages, but we'll talk about to leverage them. And of course, non-tariff barriers, what exists in certain countries when you go to them and how to overcome them, and the concluding remarks. Okay. Now, what I talked about the pick and place robot in a non-Euclidean space. We consider, like, this is only for the engineers here. I mean, engineers of JanyuTech especially, and I'm sure there are a lot of other guests. They should excuse me for 5 minutes for going into this. So, I'm just talking about hyperbolic space with a negative curvature of -1. So we consider the Euclidean space, which we all know. We are familiar with the Euclidean space and the Cartesian coordinate system which exists in that. So point P, x1, y1, z1, and point Q is described by 3 coordinates x2, y2, z2, meaning one for x-axis, one for y-axis, one for z-axis. So the distance between them, as per our analytical geometry, what we have is square root of x1 minus x2 whole square plus y1 minus y2 whole square plus z1 minus z2 whole square. What is the distance of a hyperbolic trajectory between P and Q? So it could be lesser. Sometimes, like, it could be, actually the research paper I told you describes that the pick and place robot following a non-Euclidean trajectory, especially a hyperbolic trajectory, to avoid the obstacles on the way. That's what it says. So interestingly, I thought about it myself, and then I found that there's already something going on in that line. So it could be purely academic, it could be whatever. People who may not have heard about hyperbolic geometry, I would just say a few words. We all know about what we know about the Euclidean geometry, which we taught in high schools and colleges, what we have been taught. So that is not it's not a perfectly consistent geometry. I'm just taking a few words. I'm taking a digression just for people who are interested in that. In fact, Euclid, about a few millennia back, sitting in Alexandria, formulated certain axioms or postulates, 5 to be precise, 5 postulates, which form the basis of the geometry till today. The thing which have been told a few millennia back, as still form the basis of what we have studying in the institutions today. But again, the 5th postulate of Euclid, which is called the parallel postulate, which cannot be deduced from other 4 postulates. So there is born the hyperbolic geometry, which throws Euclid to the dustbin. So, and we talk about non-Euclidean geometry, which is founded by Lobachevsky, and of course the grandfather of mathematics, Gauss. Independently. Okay, so this is a question, it's a teaser, which for you people, for employees of JanyuTech, think about this when you are in your designs and those sort of things. When it should invoke certain sort of interest in you to study, because you study robots.
Kinematics and reverse kinematics. Our people are working on that. Let's see.
Exactly. Reverse kinematics.
I'll ask my team to work on this.
Yeah. This is actually a great. Actually, Yabi, even the guy who wrote to me, he's you call him engineers tell satellite constellation, right? This Vera. Yeah. In fact, I would not know. In fact, the general theory of relativity by Einstein. The geometry of general relativity is not Euclidean. It is hyperbolic. The geometry of this general theory of relativity is hyperbolic geometry. So actually, in high speeds or in relativistic scale, we call it relativistic scale means higher speeds approaching velocity of light or very huge dimensions in space. They will follow hyperbolic. In a very micro level, in small scale level, localized, it is hyperbolic triangle will approach a Euclidean triangle. There's nothing different, not much of sizable difference. So having said that, now we'll go into the business. I know, unintended business and business. Yes. Okay. Right. Okay. Now, actually, this small presentation is, I am thinking of a paradigm shift. Like I'm trying to make it different. It's not that we're reinventing a wheel or something like that. I just tend to make thought different. Michael Porter, the guru of Harvard Business School professor, he wrote this famous book in 1990. It came the first book, Competitive Advantage of Nations. When I was in IIM, this was the Bible. I mean, these people, we were all like, I entered in 1990. So a lot of talk about this, and people are all gaga over this, and of course. This he says, in fact, we are turning the Michael Porter on its head. I mean, why not? He talked about competitive advantage of nations. So the idea, I thought, why can't we find out the competitive disadvantage of nations? The nations are many, 195 to be precise, in the whole world, 195 nations. So not all are competitive. Not all are growing at the same pace. So some have grown this much, US is here, and some countries at the back, Latin America is here, Africa is here. So there are various stages of development of nations, and hence, due to various reasons, geopolitical reasons, the competitive edge is also gone in some nations. So why don't you find out the competitive disadvantage, and I call it not advantage, disadvantage of nations, and micro map them and map your business to that. So this is something which is turning Michael Porter on his head. So this is something which we'll go into this in the subsequent slides. Meanwhile, Michael Porter is not without his critics. Michael Porter, they say that had he pursued, he's a great genius. Had he pursued a possible economics degree, he would have ended up with a Nobel Prize. But he pursued, he did in Harvard Business School, and he went into the business as a business school professor. But his Chicago school was totally opposite to them. So Chicago school, and even you would have heard of Ben Graham, who is a value investing guru. This Warren Buffett is his disciple, rather. Warren Buffett studied under this guy, Ben Graham, and he took the value industry to great heights, which is now everybody knows about value investing, how he succeeded. And Ben Graham himself was a great investor, and Warren Buffett is again, there are success stories. Chicago school is exactly, it is more rigorous. Chicago school believed in empirical research, numbers, and those sort of things. Michael Porter's theories are not so much supported by numbers. So that's why they say, in Boston there is a famous saying, the River Charles divides. You stand on the River Charles, this side you see MIT, that side you see Harvard in Boston. So somebody went to a shop or something like that, an old lady was selling something. The lady asked, are you from this side of the river or that side of the river? So then she said, if you're from this side of the river, you don't know how to talk. If you're from that side of the river, you don't know how to count. So Harvard Business School is not for numbers. MIT is for numbers. So, but number guys don't talk. Engineers don't talk much. You all know that. Engineers are not good for it. So she said, are you on this side of the river or that side of the river? This side means you can't talk. That side you can't talk. So I just mentioned Chicago school. Incidentally, Chicago school where our ex-RBI governor, Raghuram Rajan, this guy, the IMA and Chicago school. So he did from there. Okay. Now, we're talking of competitive advantage of nations. Like how are competitive advantages created? I mean, it's a very important thing. It doesn't come globally. It's a localized phenomenon. This is something which you understand. These are the words of Porter, Michael Porter. So it is not a globalized thing. Suppose I have come here. We have set up a place. We have sown the seeds of an organization here. We brought it from India. Honestly, what we carried, that's where our home is. That's where our stores is. I can't go. I can store some other thing. I buy some technology outside, but the core competence, I can buy a technology from elsewhere. I can buy, but the core competence comes from the place where I come from. So it is a highly localized process. It's not global. So that's where you should hone your skills. That's why he says home environment makes a difference. Home environment, that makes a difference. So actually, he says that in a world of increasing global competition, people say, talking about this one, you know about the famous saying of Lee Iacocca. He said, he once famously said, government has no business to be in business. This turned out to be self-repeating in the long run. So that's what I'm telling. People clamor, but actually the more important thing is actually to go in for innovation and core competence. That's what is required. An industry which innovates. The innovation can be in the product. The innovation can be in the marketing strategy. Innovation can be in a customer approach. Innovation can be in a training, even in a training model like that. Innovation, people think innovation as something very big. It could be simple, a mundane single-step improvement over the existing thing. Now, let us go to the next. This is what Porter's diamond model. So it's a diamond. It's personal, a diamond shape. Porter's famous diamond model. Determinants of national competitive advantage. He says that the factor conditions, basically the labor, the strong technical background guys, good manpower, trained manpower, all this strongly interact with each other with the strong domestic rivals. Strong domestic rival is actually welcome. People who you should encourage. You should be happy that you get rivals. So your skills, your company's approach, your company's strengths, you become more strengthened in terms of your technique. Because when you're strong, you have to improve your skills actually. So and then the related and supporting structures, supply chain, where you have suppliers, very aggressive suppliers who can demanding customers on one side and aggressive set of suppliers on the other side. So these will tend to improve your strategic position, the strategy of your strength, and the firm strategy, structure, and rivalry. The examples are many. Like in the world, you take Switzerland is known for banking, is known for pharmaceutical companies. You know, a lot of very strong big multinational companies which are, these are the core. Some countries excel in certain fields. Some countries excel in certain fields. So because their country feels it is ripe for them to support those industries. And Holland for floriculture, for a cultivation of floriculture, which found its own niche. Similarly, of all the things, the maximum, the greatest advantage comes from Japan, where it has a fierce competition locally, very fierce. So there are even in machine tools, in various segments, in automobiles. Internally, there's domestic competition internally, strong domestic rivals. When I say that, this improves your international ability to compete internationally. You compete internationally, you excel internationally. I think it's all relevant to your company also, because once JanyuTech has good, strong rivals, your product will be more competitive internationally. Your product will be more welcome internationally, because future is going to be, suppose somebody asks for a very strong specification, very tough specification of a product. You say, oh, this customer is demanding. But believe me or not, tomorrow that standard is going to become the standard of tomorrow. Today it could be tough, but world is improving. So never shun a customer who is more demanding. Never shun a standard which is more exacting. This is very important. This is Porter's diamond model, where he says the interaction of all these things make a country competitive, and firm and a country both. Okay. Now let us say how we can how the main topic is how do we use our strengths. Abhi, can you see the slide and also hear me? Wealth of nations. The wealth of nation. National prosperity is created, not inherited. If national prosperity is only created, Africa will be the wealthiest country in the world today. So people think that but the national wealth, it is a base. Like for example, your natural resources can only take you to some level, but not in the modern world. There is also something called Dutch disease effect in economics. I should talk to you about that. People feel, you hit oil. Ghana hit oil in 2000. So then there was a lot of noise here, and I was also participating in a government level meeting as to how to capitalize on that and how Ghana will become like Dubai. We're talking about that. Actually, we had a lot of visitors from Nigeria, our neighbor. Nigeria is the 6th biggest oil producing country in the world. 6th biggest oil producing country in the world. And it has a population of about 180 million. It has got a good amount of, though the per capita is less, its national GDP is fairly sizable, and it is the biggest economy in Africa. But to see the state, the poverty, the disparity of income, the development, pathetic. Though there is a lot of money there, still it is not a rich nation. So those people came there and said, actually one guy came, he's from Wharton Business School, UPenn, University of Pennsylvania. It's a very famous, it's a very, very big school. This guy studied in Wharton. He worked as a business manager in Nigerian oil. He told me, he took me aside and said, in 2009, he told me, do you think that the boon for you, oil is a bane for you? So you will now face all the problems. But what he said, the reason was different. He talked about corruption. He talked about you have not seen money. He said, once you get the oil, money will pour through the roof. It makes you mad. It changes the way. That's how money is. The money changes the way we think. The money changes the way we live. The money changes the way we behave with others. But then he said that the oil money is so high that it will corrupt you. But I have another, that's that apart. But there's an academic approach to it. It's called Dutch disease effect. So take the example of Nigeria. Nigeria was, before oil was stuck in somewhere in the late 60s or early 70s. Before it was a fairly developing country. It had a big base of agriculture. It had industrial base. HMT, Hindustan Machine Tools, had their operations in Nigeria before in 1970. So they had a reasonably good infrastructure. It was growing. It was growing as such. It's not spectacular, but it was going in a decent way. But once oil stuck, they start exporting oil. Once you start exporting oil, your currency appreciates. Your naira, which is the local currency, appreciates against all the major currencies in the world. Once your currency appreciates, your other exports, your non-traditional, non-oil exports come down. So all the industries died out. This is called Dutch. It says in economics, it's called Dutch disease. Dutch face the similar thing, I guess. So once it is said that once a country comes across a natural resource like oil or a gold or any other mineral, things like that, it start exporting. It actually is detrimental to the other sectors of the economy, and they died out. So that's what happened in Nigeria for a long time. Still the country is, you can't say big about that. It's still at that stage only, except that it gets oil wealth, which is taken away by the presidents, and they fly helicopters full of dollars every day out of the country. So fine. Having said that, what I said was national prosperity is created. Creation comes from the people, from the knowledge, from the innovation, from the creative base of the people in the country. It's not inherited. It is entrepreneurial spirit, which is important. So what we would say here, development of nations is inevitable. All nations develop. Now that due to globalization, due to the information sharing, due to the cross-border transfer of material services, development of nations is inevitable. But also inevitable are the lags and different phases that are present. Some countries are behind the curve. Some are ahead of the curve. Some are on the curve. So let us micro match these things to the requirements. The engineering base with the engineering knowledge, like certain countries lag certain industries. So for example, an aggressive planner, an aggressive businessman should look into this and match it so that he can go to the country and then serve that. Okay. Now, going into the country is a linear model, just linear. There's nothing non-linear about it. So X to Y, finish. But there's another phenomenon which has been happening for the past more than less than a century, but more than half a century. Coming together of nations. Nations are joining hands. So whatever goods come to your country of your origin, we make it zero duty, and whatever from there, zero duty. So it is a simple trade area. Customs union is a bit more complicated on this because it has the same tariff and it forms a bigger, more nations are in this. Common market envisages free flow of goods as well as trained personnel. People can go across. They travel, they can go for employment across the countries, which is in the particular union. And monetary union forming a single currency like euro as a simple. Europe went through all these phases. First it went as 1970s. We talked about free trade. Then we have a European Common Market (ECM). Then we had further improvement. Then finally it culminated in the monetary union where the euro was born, subject to certain parameters like some financial parameters and the economic parameters of each country. They should have so much percentage of GDP deficit, fiscal deficit of GDP, fiscal deficit as a percent of GDP. That's convergence criteria they call it. So subject to that, they form the monetary union. Monetary union as a success has happened only in one place all over the world. That's Europe. Nowhere else it has happened. We tried. In fact, I was a part of the committee here. You have the access to a population of 400 million, which is almost 30% of India's population. Once you have an access to COMISA, where you put up your business in one of the countries, you have access, zero duty access. I mean, okay, somewhat theoretically, somewhat practically, you have 560 million people access. It's almost half the population of India. So that's where the opportunity lies. So when international trade, gone are the days when you say you go and set up a business there and you serve only the nation. Because of the economic union and the preferential treatment, the hinterland, whole of ECOWAS offers you a population of 400 million people to serve. Leave the GDP, but still, even if the GDP per capita is lower, still it is a good amount of population to serve. So this one is something which the companies should look at. The companies like Abis or startups like who are really coming up and they want to set up somewhere. They should look into places where you station and have an access to a bigger population than what is there in the country. Okay. So any doubt?
Go ahead.
Okay. Actually, I should have told about a particular thing. So we talked of about 25 years, no, about 40 years back. 40 years back, it was a Sindhi company, small Sindhi company, trading in commodities. It was based in Nigeria. So I know some of that family members who are the original shareholders. They were dealing in commodities. So then they professionalized and there's a guy now, he grew the company. His name is Sunny Varghese. He's from IIM Ahmedabad. He is based in Singapore. It's called Olam International. People have heard about it. Now the turnover of the group is $5 billion. And it is such a in two core competence. They have done two core competence. One core competence is the commodities. They are big players in commodities. They are into cocoa, they are into cashews and sesame seeds, and they have gone into backward integration from there. Based on the core competence, having established that, they have gone into backward integration, manufacturing biscuits, manufacturing oil, they gone into backward integration. Forward integration. They went into items to make the further items. So this company, is a classic example of. So these countries have their language barriers. We need to master the language and go into number one. Coming with the language, the culture flows on the heels of the language follows the culture. French have a different culture. Even today, you'll be surprised that I was every day working day. They go for 2 hours sleep, 1 hour or 2 hours. So this is called siesta. And it was a habit in France, which these colonies, the French colonies, they pick up all the bad things. They not pick up the good things. They pick up the bad things. So actually, I was talking to long back. I was talking to a manager in Burkina Faso. He's a general manager of something MD of a big edible oil plant. I was supplying the packing gallons to it. Suddenly he got up out of this. He was just talking like this. I was sitting, and my person was talking. He was just making it just as if getting up. up. Then my person told it's 12 o'clock, he has to go home. Then he said, I'll be back by 2 o'clock. They go, have food, and actually sleep, and then come. Yeah. So this is one of the characteristics of you go to Senegal or this Francophone countries, 2 to 4 the shops are closed. The market is empty. Like you may even get mugged, you may get dropped. I mean, you won't touch wood, but I'm telling you, so empty that But actually, one guy got robbed. One of my employees got robbed. I remember he was going and somebody came and showed a knife and took his purse from him. Because nobody took his wallet from him. So this is something which is which is a culture. You have to take note of the culture.